He stepped out, chest heaving, face lit by headlights. Caleb ran to him, eyes blazing with awe. "You did it! You did it!" Rico stormed over, fury painted across his face. That was luck. A fluke. But even he knew. The Charger had sung under Zeke's hands in a way no luck could conjure. The legend had returned, if only for one race. Zeke looked at the sea of faces, some laughing, some shocked, many whispering his name as it spread through the crowd like wildfire. Zeke Harris. Zeke Harris. For years, he had been invisible. Tonight, he was undeniable. The smoke hung in the night air long after the engines cut. The Charger ticked softly, cooling, like an old lion finally resting after a hunt. Zeke stood still beside it, chest heaving, body trembling with exhaustion and triumph. For a moment he simply listened, the crowd buzzing, his pulse pounding, the faint metallic sigh of the machine that had carried him. It felt like standing in the pits again, helmet under his arm, waiting for the reporters, the fans, the handshakes. Except this wasn't Talladega. It was a cracked strip of asphalt behind warehouses. The fans were kids with phones. The cameras weren't news crews. They were TikToks. And yet, Zeke smiled. Victory was victory. Speed was speed. The machine had sung for him once more. The crowd shifts. At first, the crowd kept their distance, whispering, replaying footage on their screens, disbelief painted across their faces. Then one by one they approached. "Yeah, that was crazy. Who is this guy?" Someone said he used to be a real racer. "No way. He's too old. Too..." But the murmurs grew. Phones scrolled. Articles surfaced. Pictures compared. And slowly recognition bloomed. A boy no older than 16 stepped forward, holding his phone with a photo pulled up. A young Zeke Harris in his racing prime, grinning beside a stock car. He held it up against the present-day man. The hair was gone, the wrinkles deepened, but the eyes were the same. "It's him," the boy whispered. "It's really him." The crowd hushed. Then, like a wave, voices rose. "Zeke! Harris! Legend! Man, I thought you were dead!" Zeke didn't answer. He only stood there, the sound washing over him. It wasn't the stadium roar he remembered, but it was enough to remind him he hadn't been erased. Rico's. Defeat Rico paced like a caged animal, disbelief souring into rage. He shouted, cursed, pointed fingers. "It's rigged! That car ain't legal!" But the more he ranted, the smaller he seemed against the tide of awe swelling towards Zeke. Finally, he threw his keys at his own crew and stormed off, swallowed by the night. No one followed. For once, the king of the strip had been dethroned, and by a man everyone had written off as a nobody. Caleb's revelation. Caleb hovered at Zeke's side, face glowing with pride. "I knew it," he whispered. "I knew you weren't done." Zeke glanced at him, the hard lines of his face softening. "Kid, I was done a long time ago." "No," Caleb insisted, "you're not. Not if you can still do that." He pointed at the Charger, still steaming, still alive with the echo of the race. Zeke let the words settle. He wanted to argue, but in the silence that followed, he realized Caleb wasn't entirely wrong. Maybe he was too old to chase championships, too scarred to reclaim the spotlight. But the racer inside him wasn't dead. He had just been waiting for someone to remember. And Caleb had remembered. The aftermath. In the days that followed, videos of the race spread, not viral, not instantly, but enough to ripple. Old fans dug up photos, newspaper clippings. A few former crew members, long retired, sent messages through social media accounts Caleb set up for him. "Zeke, is that really you? Man, you taught me what racing meant back in '82. Glad to see you still burning rubber, brother." Zeke read the words with cautious disbelief. He never asked for fame again, but he couldn't deny the warmth of being remembered. At the garage, Caleb's uncle remained skeptical, but one morning when a car sat stubborn and silent despite all efforts, Zeke stepped forward. Without a word, the uncle handed him a wrench, a test. Minutes later, the engine roared to life. The uncle stared, then nodded once. No apology, no flowery speech, just respect, unspoken but real. Zeke's choice. One night, weeks later, Caleb found Zeke polishing the old wrench again, but this time He wasn't sitting on a milk crate in the shadows. He was at the garage. Under real light, a stool pulled up by the workbench. "You thinking about racing again?" Caleb asked. Zeke chuckled, shaking his head. "Nah, that chapter's closed. My bones wouldn't forgive me. But fixing, teaching, maybe." He looked at Caleb, eyes narrowing with that familiar sharpness. "Hey, you got the fire, boy. Just need to learn how to listen." Caleb grinned. "Then teach me." And so it began. Not the rebirth of a racing career, but the passing of a torch. Zeke's hands guiding Caleb's, his stories filling the air, his knowledge bleeding into a new generation. The racer wouldn't live forever, but the legend didn't need to. Legends only need someone willing to carry them forward. The final lap. Months later, Zeke stood once again at the edge of a strip. Not to race, but to watch. Caleb sat in the driver's seat now, nerves taut, engine humming. Zeke leaned into the window just as Caleb had once leaned into his. "Remember, don't fight her. Listen, she'll tell you what she needs." Caleb nodded. "Got it." As the flag dropped and the car tore forward, Zeke stepped back, a smile spreading across his weathered face. The roar of the engine carried into the night, and for the first time in years, he felt at peace. He had been mocked, forgotten, discarded. But the fire hadn't died. It had only changed lanes, and sometimes he realized that was enough. "What?" "Too much gas, not enough air. You'll drown her if you keep turning like that." The older man peered into the engine bay, his fingers twitching as if they ached to touch the machinery. Caleb hesitated. Against better judgment, he stepped back. "Fine," he muttered. "Show me." Zeke's hands moved with practiced precision. He tapped the carburetor, adjusted a hose clamp with a flick, then gestured. "Now try." Caleb turned the key. The engine coughed once, then roared to life. The sound hit Zeke in the chest like an old lover's embrace. His eyes closed briefly, savoring it. The vibrations, the growl, the heartbeat of combustion, it was still music. Caleb stared, wide-eyed. "Holy, how did you—" Zeke stepped. Back, the faintest glimmer of pride in his expression. "Engines talk. Most folks don't listen." From the garage doorway, a man in grease-stained overalls appeared, broad-shouldered, balding, cigarette dangling from his lips. Caleb's uncle. His face hardened at the sight of Zeke. What the hell's this, some vagrant playing with customer cars? Caleb started to explain, but Zeke had already backed away, lifting his hands. "Don't worry, won't touch again." The uncle sneered. "Damn right you won't, get lost." Zeke crossed the street, picked up his sign and sat back down without a word. Caleb lingered, shame burning in his gut. The whisper of the past. That night, Caleb found himself unable to sleep. He lay in his cramped apartment, phone screen glowing, searching the name that had been turning in his head. Zeke. Zeke Harris. Engines racing. And there it was. Old black and white photos, yellowed newspaper scans, articles buried deep. Ezekiel Harris, first black racer to qualify at Talladega. Harris takes Daytona by storm. The quiet genius of the track. Pictures of a young man in a jumpsuit, helmet under his arm, flanked by roaring cars, eyes sharp, grin wide. Caleb sat back stunned. The man with the cardboard sign wasn't lying. He wasn't crazy. He was a damn legend. The confrontation. The next day, Caleb found Zeke exactly where he expected. Same corner, same crate, same cardboard sign. "Why didn't you tell me?" Caleb demanded. Zeke raised an eyebrow. "Tell you what?" "That you were him, Zeke Harris, the racer." A silence stretched. The city noise seemed to fade. Zeke's face was unreadable. Then, finally, he chuckled, low and bitter, "Because nobody believes it. And even if they do, what difference does it make? Legends don't eat. Legends don't pay rent." Caleb sat beside him on the curb. "But you were somebody. My uncle, he might—" "Actually," Zeke cut him off sharply. "Your uncle sees a bum, that's all, and maybe he's right." Caleb clenched his fists. "He's wrong, you're not finished, you can't be." Zeke's eyes flickered, the faintest spark reigniting. He stared at the traffic rushing by, at the blur of headlights that reminded him of racing nights long gone. His jaw tightened. "You don't get it, boy," he said softly. Once the world decides you're done, they don't give you another lap. They wave the checkered flag whether you're ready or not. But Caleb saw it, the hunger still buried deep, the way Zeke's fingers twitched whenever an engine revved nearby. The racer wasn't dead, just buried. Foreshadowing the challenge weeks past, Caleb kept returning, sometimes with food, sometimes just to talk. Slowly, Zeke opened up. He told stories of the track, the first time he hit 200 Memifer, the time he raced half a lap with a punctured tire, the roar of the crowd when he overtook 3 cars in the final stretch. Caleb listened, wide-eyed, recording some on his phone. He knew there was a bigger story here, something worth telling. One evening, Caleb mentioned a local event, an amateur street racing meet that drew crowds and sponsors. His uncle had been complaining about it non-stop, cursing the reckless punks with more nitrous than brains. "Come with me," Caleb urged. "Just watch. You'll see." Zeke hesitated. He hadn't been near a track, legal or otherwise, in decades, but curiosity gnawed at him. That Saturday night, under the flickering orange glow of warehouse lights, Caleb led him to the gathering. Engines revved, tires screeched, crowds cheered as cars lined up for head-to-head battles down a deserted strip of asphalt. Zeke stood, at the edge, his body rigid, every nerve on fire. The smell of burning rubber, the metallic scream of exhausts, the pulse of adrenaline. It was all still there. His hands shook, not with age, but with longing. Caleb whispered, "You could beat them, I know you could." Zeke didn't answer, but his eyes, fixed on the cars hurtling into the night, burned with the fire of a man who had once lived at the edge of speed itself. The legend wasn't gone. He was waiting. The night of the street race thickened with smoke, gasoline, and anticipation. Engines barked in the distance, echoing between abandoned warehouses. The crowd pressed closer to the cracked asphalt strip, phones out, screens glowing like fireflies in the dark. Caleb tugged at Zeke's sleeve. "You see that car, the black Camaro? That's Rico's. Nobody's beaten him in 2 years. He's fast and dirty." Zeke's eyes scanned the Camaro, the stance too low, the exhaust tuned sharp, but he could already hear, just from its idle, that Rico was pushing the turbo too hard. The engine wouldn't last the night. Zeke smirked faintly. Then came the taunt. Rico himself, tall, cocky, all gold chains and swagger, spotted Zeke standing on the fringe. "Fio who let Grandpa in? This a car meet, not bingo night." Laughter rippled through the crowd. Rico strutted closer, eyes narrowing on the ragged man with the cardboard sign tucked under his arm. "What's this, old man? You here to fix?" "Mufflers for food." The word stabbed like a cruel echo. The crowd laughed harder. Caleb bristled. "He's not just some guy, he was a racer." "A racer," Rico sneered. "Yeah, I race too. My grandma beats me at Monopoly. That count?" More laughter. Phones angled in, recording every second. For a moment, Zeke stood silent. His breath came heavy, like the weight of years pressing on his chest. He could walk away, he'd done it before thousands of times, fade into the night, let the world forget. But then his hand closed around the wrench in his pocket, gripping it, like a talisman. He raised his head. "Set me up," he said quietly. The crowd blinked. Rico barked a laugh. "You serious, old man? You want to race me?" Zeke's voice didn't waver. "Set me up." The preparation. Caleb's heart raced faster than any engine. He pulled Zeke aside. "Wait, you don't even have a car." Zeke's eyes swept the lot, then landed on an old Dodge Charger parked near the edge. Its owner, a lanky man smoking against the hood, watched the commotion with interest. "Borrow it?" Zeke said simply. The man laughed. "What, this heap? She hasn't seen real speed in years." Zeke stepped forward, placed a hand on the hood as though listening through metal. "She'll run, if you let me drive." Something, in his voice, calm, certain, reverent, made the owner pause. Then with a shrug he tossed Zeke the keys. "Don't kill her." Zeke slid into the driver's seat. The smell of cracked vinyl and old grease filled his lungs. His hands curled around the wheel, and for the first time in decades he felt whole. His pulse slowed. His breath steadied. The car wasn't perfect, but it didn't need to be. She needed to remember. The showdown. The crowd swelled at the start line, phones high, voices buzzing. Rico revved his Camaro, engine snarling like an angry beast. Flames spat from the exhaust. The crowd roared approval. Then came the Charger, dull. Paint, faded rims, body scarred by time. But when Zeke revved it, the growl was deeper, steadier, like thunder rolling in the distance. Heads turned. Something in that sound silenced the laughter. Caleb leaned into the window. You don't have to prove anything, but if you do, show them who you are. Zeke gave the faintest smile. Boy, I've been proving it my whole life. The flag girl stepped between the cars, arms raised, engine snarled, wheels squealed. Zeke's hands tightened on the wheel, his body sinking into rhythm. The world narrowed to a strip of asphalt, 2 cars, and a heartbeat. The flag dropped. The race. The Camaro launched ahead instantly, turbo screaming, tires spitting smoke. Rico grinned, already throwing up a taunting hand out the window. But Zeke didn't panic. He felt the Charger's weight, listened to the gears sing. He shifted not by sight, not by numbers, but by instinct. Each move perfectly timed, as natural as breathing. Halfway down the strip, the Charger surged. The crowd gasped as the gap closed. Zeke's eyes sharpened, the years peeling away. He wasn't a homeless man anymore. He was Ezekiel Harris, racer, flying down Talladega, Daytona, Indy. Rico pushed harder, but the Camaro shuddered under strain. Zeke heard it, the turbo choking, fuel mix off balance. Rico was burning too hot, too fast. At the final stretch, Zeke downshifted, slingshotting forward. The Charger screamed, body rattling, but it held. Side by side, the cars roared past the cheering crowd. Neon lights blurring, the world reduced to speed and fire. Zeke leaned into the wheel, whispered to the machine, "One more breath, girl." The Charger surged. They crossed the line, Zeke ahead by half a car length. The silence and the roar. For a heartbeat, silence. Then an eruption. The crowd screamed, phones flashing, disbelief flooding the air. Zeke rolled to a stop, hands trembling not from weakness, but from the flood of adrenaline. The cardboard sign shook faintly in his trembling hands, letters scrawled in black marker, half faded by rain and sun. "Can I fix it for food?" Most people passing by didn't bother to read. They saw a man in ragged layers, skin weathered by wind and years of neglect, hair gone wiry with grey, and dismissed him with a glance that slid away as if his presence were an offense. At the corner of 7th and Alameda in downtown Los Angeles, where the air reeked of smog, fried oil, and the metallic tang of exhaust, a small crowd of 20-somethings loitered outside a neon-lit burger joint. They noticed him. "Yo, check this guy out," one of them laughed, phone already in hand. "Fix it for food? What's he gonna fix, my sneakers?" The group chuckled, egging each other on, tossing insults like scraps to a dog. One boy mimed turning a wrench, pretending to tighten bolts in the air. Another girl, filming with wide-eyed glee, zoomed in on the man's cracked boots. The homeless man, dark-skinned, shoulders slouched but eyes strangely steady, didn't flinch. He didn't beg. He didn't retreat. He simply adjusted the sign so it faced the jeering audience. His lips barely moved as he spoke, but the words carried. "I've fixed things faster than you've ever dreamed of going." The kids laughed harder. "Yeah, okay, Grandpa. What are you, some pit stop mechanic? You look like you couldn't fix a flat tire." The man blinked slowly, and for a moment his gaze wasn't on them at all. It was somewhere else, far away, where engines screamed and crowds thundered, where speed was everything and victory meant immortality. No one on that street corner knew that decades ago, this same man had been a name whispered in racing circles, a legend who once touched 220 miles per hour on the straightaway at Daytona. No one knew he once had sponsors, trophies, fans who wore his number like armor. No one knew how the world had cheered and then forgotten. And now, hungry, homeless, mocked, he stood in front of flashing phones and cruel laughter. The city only saw a beggar. They didn't see the racer still burning inside. The city at night never truly slept. Sirens whined like restless children. Headlights carved brief tunnels of brightness through the smog, and the hum of generators mixed with the bass of far-off clubs. For most, Los Angeles was a dream factory. For him, it was a scrapyard of memories. The man with the cardboard sign lowered it as the crowd drifted away, their laughter echoing long after they were gone. His stomach twisted in empty protest, but hunger was no longer new. It was an old rhythm like the ticking of a cooling engine. He found his corner, behind a muffler shop near a flickering street lamp that buzzed like a dying wasp, and sat on a milk crate. In his pocket he carried a socket wrench so worn the metal gleamed like a mirror. It was all he had left from another life. His name, at least the one that used to mean something, was Ezekiel Zeke Harris. To the world that name had faded. To him, it was a ghost that refused to let go. Back in the day, there had been a time when Zeke couldn't walk through a pit lane without hands reaching to shake his, kids begging for autographs on caps and posters, and flashbulbs firing like miniature lightning storms. He was a pioneer, a black man in a sport where money, privilege, and whiteness had long been the gatekeepers. Born in Birmingham, Alabama in 1954, Zeke grew up near the railroad tracks. His father worked the lines, greasing wheels and hammering bolts, while his mother scrubbed hotel floors until her knees ached raw. By 10 years old, Zeke could dismantle a carburetor faster than most men twice his age. By 12, he'd built his own go-kart from scraps scavenged at junkyards. Racing was in his blood before he even knew what the word career meant. By the 1970s, when he was barely in his 20s, Zeke had clawed his way into the world of professional stock car racing. His hands were quick, his reflexes quicker. But more than that, he had vision. He could read the track like others read scripture. Every curve, every groove in the asphalt whispered secrets to him. And when he drove, when he drove, he became something else entirely. The car and man weren't separate. They were one machine, roaring against time itself. The present. Decay now, 40 years later. His world was a cardboard sign and a rusting wrench. His fall hadn't been a crash, though. Not one big accident. It was slower, quieter. Like a tire leak you didn't notice until the rim scraped sparks against the road. Sponsors dried up. A bad season turned into two. A shoulder injury from a wreck took him out for nearly a year. Younger faces, hungrier, and better funded replaced him. The calls stopped, the checks thinned, his marriage unraveled piece by piece. By the 1990s, Zeke Harris was no longer a headline, he was a footnote. And when the drinking started, the decline became irreversible. Now, he drifted through the streets, surviving on instinct. He fixed what he could, broken fans, radios, sometimes even bicycles for scraps of food. But mostly he faded into the background hum of the city, a forgotten relic waiting for... what exactly? He wasn't sure anymore. The young man, that night after the laughter died down, one figure lingered. A young man, maybe 19, wiry frame, hoodie pulled up, stood under the awning of the burger joint. His friends had left, but he hadn't joined them. He watched Zeke pack up the sign, eyes narrowing, not with cruelty but with curiosity. Finally, he crossed the street. "Hey," the kid said, voice cautious. "What did you mean, back there? About fixing things? Faster than we've ever dreamed of going?" Zeke didn't look up at first. He polished the socket wrench with a rag, the gesture almost ceremonial. Then he spoke without lifting his head. "Engines," he said simply. "Machines that run hotter than fire, louder than thunder. I used to make them sing." The boy tilted his head. "You a mechanic or something?" Zeke finally raised his eyes. For a second, the kid flinched. The gaze was too steady, too sharp for a man who looked otherwise broken. "Something like that," Zeke murmured. "Something like that." The seed of conflict. The boy left eventually, but the question lingered. For the first time in years, someone had asked. Not mocked, not dismissed, but asked. Zeke lay under the skeletal overhang of the muffler shop that night, staring at the sky smudged grey with smog. His mind slipped back into the past, back to the roar of engines, the heat of asphalt under his boots, the weight of a helmet in his hands. He remembered the feeling of the wheel jerking under his grip, the centrifugal pull in the turns, the pulse of 1,000 eyes locked on him as he sped toward glory. It wasn't gone, Not entirely. Somewhere beneath the grime and hunger, beneath the years of failure, that racer still lived. But the world only saw a beggar. And the cruel irony was this: the skills that once made him untouchable were still there. His hands still knew the feel of an engine's heartbeat. His ears still caught the faintest misfire, the whisper of imbalance. He was still Zeke Harris. He just had no place to prove it anymore. Until fate, reckless, unpredictable fate, would give him one. The morning light hit Los Angeles like a tired boxer, sluggish, hazy, bruised with smog. Zeke stirred awake on the concrete, the coolness of dawn clinging to his bones. A low rumble of trucks on Alameda shook the ground, while pigeons scavenged the sidewalks. He pulled himself up slowly, joints stiff, back bent, and checked his pocket, still there. The wrench. Always the wrench. He rubbed it once, a ritual, then tucked it back like a man tucking away a crucifix. The return of the kid. By noon, the street swelled with foot traffic. Zeke had his cardboard sign propped against his knee, his eyes half shut as if dozing. But he wasn't asleep. He never truly slept during the day. "Yo!" The voice startled him, not because it was loud, but because it was familiar. The kid from the night before. Zeke squinted, hoodie, wiry frame, restless eyes. This time he carried a greasy paper bag. "I brought you something," the boy said, thrusting it out awkwardly. The smell of fries and burgers wafted through the air like a taunt. Zeke took it without a word, tore into it like a starving wolf, and ate silently. The boy watched, shifting from foot to foot. When Zeke finally slowed, wiping his mouth with the back of his hand, the boy spoke again. "My name's Caleb," he said. "I work across the street. My uncle runs the garage." Zeke gave him a long look, then returned his gaze to the sidewalk. Last night, you said you used to fix engines. You really mean that?" Zeke smirked faintly, the first ghost of humor on his face in years. "I never lied. About machines, people maybe, not machines." Caleb leaned in. "Then prove it. Come by the shop sometime. My uncle's always cussing about how no one knows how to listen to an engine anymore." Zeke laughed under his breath, a dry, bitter sound. "Boy, your uncle won't let a man like me touch his tools. Not dressed like this, not smelling like this." Caleb frowned. He wanted to argue, but Zeke was already folding the burger wrapper into a perfect square, setting it aside as though discipline was the only thing keeping him upright. The first test. 2 days later, fate pushed them together again. Caleb was struggling outside the shop, sweating over a customer's car that refused to start. The hood yawned open, steam curling upward. Zeke watched from across the street, sign balanced on his knees. He could hear it from here, the faint, irregular tick when Caleb tried the ignition, the sluggish choke of fuel not firing right. Zeke knew it instantly. Without realizing it, he stood and crossed the street. "You're flooding it," Zeke said. Caleb jerked, startled.